Hi, thank you. Yes, so let me introduce our new offering Event Studio. And as Harsh already mentioned, it's a bit about kind of opening what we call the black box that AWS often is, because you cannot peek inside. You don't necessarily know what data services send between each other. And this is what we try to do with Event Studio, make it easier. And so let's maybe phrase a bit the problem so we know what we are talking about and why is this relevant. So the big problem, as I mentioned, is inter-service communication. And what do we mean with that? For example, if you take this sample application, which I will be showing you later in a demo, is you have a DynamoDB table, then you have a Lambda, which is added to this DynamoDB table, data stream via event source mapping. It gets new writes into the table, enriches it, and then puts it into queue. Maybe for another Lambda to pick it up. We don't care so much about that. We only care about these three services. And this is, if you work with it, if you have experience, relatively easy to implement on the surface level, but there are multiple pitfalls, and it often has to do with how is the data changed? How is the data format that you receive from the DynamoDB table? Maybe your Lambda fails because you have not anticipated everything correctly. How do you enrich it with the Lambda? Do you put it in the SQS queue? Maybe you make some errors there. Maybe there are some edge cases which are hard to like run all the way through the pipeline. So there are a lot of problems where you would rely on knowing what data is exchanged between these services, which, I mean, you can set up some samples and get around it via the hard way, but Event Studio makes this quite easy and quite straightforward to peek into that. So let me show you how we do that. So we basically, for now, have these 4 steps, how we make it way easier for you to understand how data flows and what data flows between these services. And basically put you into the driver's seat that you can, with the data, go through each step, how it changes, what it is. Yeah. So the first part would be surfacing it. What events are there? What data kind of goes through your system? Surfacing all the different steps. The second part is connected. So if it's just random events, you would not necessarily know, okay, what service talked to what, where am I focusing right now? So the second part is connected into a nice graph. So you can easily identify the part which you're interested, maybe the part where the error is, and focus on that sub part. Again, I will show you in the demo how this looks. Step 3 is bringing you to details. This is actually what you're mostly interested in, but you have to get there stepwise. And this is showing you the data, showing you the content, showing you the metadata, basically giving you all the necessary information for you to figure out what you need to change, what is wrong. And the fourth part, which is very exciting, is now if you say, okay, I adapt my Lambda, and then I have to think of, okay, what data do I have to put into the DynamoDB table that the Lambda is invoked in exactly the right data format? But you don't have to do that anymore with Event Studio. You can right away, for specific steps in your enrichment process, just replay this state. And this will then automatically invoke all the services afterwards. So you can, at any state of the system, replay it, which makes it way easier to iterate on your systems. For now, we have mainly 4 screens for these 4 parts. First, we surface it via a list where you have all the events. Then we connect it via a graph. In this graph, you can also see the details for any particular data you're interested in, and then you can replay it. I will afterwards talk a bit what the future outlook is, how we want to change that. But now let's go into the demo. So I set up the same sample app as we had in the beginning. So we have a DynamoDB table. This is connected to a Lambda via event source mapping via DynamoDB streams. And this then just writes into an SQS. So let me switch to my screen. So first, you can right away, right now, install the extension via the web app. Just go to your running instance or to extensions and install it. And then I already started a LocalStack instance with the extension installed. And now let me deploy also deployed the stack because takes a bit, but now let's put some sample data into the DynamoDB table to see what goes on there. So I have a make target for that. This just simply adds 3 users into our table, which stores the users. And if you pay attention to the left side of the screen, you can see that there are events coming into our system. And this is what happens in real-time. Events are, as we capture them in the backend, they are in real time pushed to the front end, and you can see them here. And these are now all the events that are captured by our system. This is the first step. The second step would be connecting them. Okay, so how does this look? So let's, for example, say, okay, I'm interested in the first event. What's going on here? Then I would click on that. And then we see this in a connected graph. To be frank, this graph is now not as sophisticated because we have a simple demo app, but this is in theory and in practice how it would show up. So what does this show you? We have several steps. First, we see a graph node, and this shows you what service is involved and what is the operational step. And you can then, as the data traverses through your system, we capture each transformation step or each service invocation, we capture this event. So let's say the next one would be, okay, it was written into the DynamoDB table. Now the next step is that it is this DynamoDB stream kind of picks it up and forwards it. Then it would invoke the event source mapping the Lambda, and this then would run the Lambda, and the Lambda itself writes something into the SQS. So let's now look into the next step, the details. I told you that's the most important part because now we basically captured our output and we saw, okay, this is not the data we put in. There is something wrong. I mean, I made a kind of an error. Let's figure out how we have to update our Lambda that in our SQS is the data we actually put into the stream and we enriched. So let's go to the Lambda. Okay, we see what was the payload that was invoked with the Lambda. This is exactly the data as a JSON Lambda gets invoked by a payload. We also see, for example, metadata. When was it invoked? What was the account? What was the Lambda function name? But we are now mostly interested in this. And okay, I made a bit of an easy mistake, but maybe this is the beginning in the problem when you come up with a stack, how you also approach it. So I did not know what would the data look like that the Lambda receives from the DynamoDB table. And I was a bit too lazy to read the documentation, so I just put it here. And now we'll use Event Studio to figure out what data structure Lambda receives from DynamoDB stream. So this shows me that we have an event name insert. Okay, I'm only interested in insert, already got that. Then we have the new image. Okay, this is apparently the new data which I'm interested in. And we have it via keys for each column and then the type of string or number and the data. Okay. Here I'm a bit lazy, so I already have that pre-coded. So let's say now, okay, now we figured out this is what we want our enrichment Lambda to do. It reads the existing data, maybe just adds in timestamp and then just asks, if it's in a particular company, we say it's defaultly subscribed to user. So let's now update our stack with the new Lambda that correctly reads the data. Let's give it a few seconds. Yes, my laptop really doesn't like me streaming videos, then it's a bit slower. Okay. Yes, so it synthesized it, it deployed it. Yes, so now the Lambda should be updated. And what can we do now? We can again put stuff into our DynamoDB table, have it traverse all the steps, but we actually are only interested in this particular data set. So what we can do, we can actually use the replay feature. So you see here, you have the replay button. Again, I will probably show that in a future session where how you can also use that to manipulate data, because you can change, for example, to what target, to what consumer you want to replay. You can change the payload, but for now, let's just keep it. And let's just replay as it is. Give it a few seconds. Okay, that looks good. And now, I actually wanted to show you that they're quite a bit different, that you can see that something happens. But if you see, you would have seen that there are new events coming in. So maybe let's do it again. So if we replay it, you see, it's updating it. And it's only updating it from this side to the right. So there, nothing happens because it's only replaying it from here. And let's see if actually our invocation data changed. And ta-da! It actually is the data which we expected and for what we corrected our enricher. So this is how you can easily use Event Studio for figuring out where your errors are. But this is not everything. So you can also use Event Studio for capturing IAM permission issues. You can use it for capturing invocation errors and errors down the line where you would not even reach to this stage that you can replay the Lambda and you can invoke the SQS, but it's just an error because you made a mistake. And what is also very exciting, we added some kind of logic where we infer how you could have maybe wanted to configure your stack. And then we highlight you with warnings if you have not configured it in a way how we think the stack should be configured. This is still in the early phases because it needs some kind of inference from our side, but it is very helpful for more complex services, for example, like Event Bridge, where you would have rules and targets. And for example, if you forget to attach a target to a rule, we will warn you. Attention, maybe you wanted to connect a target and here's no target. But overall, this is the current state of Event Bridge, Event Studio, and it is very exciting for like speeding up the process of figuring out where is my error, why is the error happening, and how I can solve it, and then replay it to quickly iterate on that. Yes, that's actually it.